welcome to the stage, Charifa.
When I was a little girl, my mom asked me a question that you've probably all been asked as a child. What do you want to be when you grow up? My answer was simple. I want to have 5 jobs. I know that I can be many things. Well, you can guess my mother's answer. That's not really how it works, honey. You have to choose one. But I can be a little bit stubborn, so I refuse to adhere to that philosophy. Ladies and gentlemen, to take you on this journey, I will require your participation. In order for us to move on with the story, I need all of you to clap every single time you hear, on your marks, get set, then you clap. Oh, okay, so you have to clap just once. Yes. Let's give it a try. On your marks, get set. Great. One more time. On your marks, get set. I am an athlete. So in elementary school and in middle school, my gym teachers noticed that I was pretty fast. So they recommended that I join the Ottawa Lions track and field club. At 14, I decided to show up at the L'Oreal Dome in Orleans, do the tryout, and see if I can be placed in any of the groups. I did pretty well and was placed in an elite training group. That same year, I qualified for OFSA, for those of you who are from Ontario or went to high school in Ontario. And the same summer, I medaled at nationals. And I have to be honest, I did not put in any work. I was not focused at all. I wanted to do all of my other extracurricular activities, dance, everything, you name it. So having that first accomplishment made me realize that I wanted to make this a goal. I want to be an athlete. I want to do this. So I started putting in a lot of work. I trained hard, really worked my ass off, and a couple of weeks before the competition, I pulled my hamstring. Yes, and I was out for the summer. And honestly, what felt the hardest was not really the fact that all my hard work was washed away, but it was the first time that I felt like I didn't exist anymore. The coach who supported me completely ignored me because I couldn't perform or compete anymore. I was basically devastated. It felt like a lot at 15. So a couple of days went by, and my high school had a garage sale. I found this book entitled The Success Principles for Teens that I still have right here. Yes, it was only $1, so I just had to buy it. I started reading the book every single day, and I came across the following words. Whenever you imagine yourself struggling or telling yourself that you're not good enough, it slows you down and keeps you inside your comfort zone. To change your comfort zone, stop saying I can't and imagine your life the way you wanted. So basically, the book was telling me that in order to become a successful athlete or a successful student or successful in any way possible, getting out of my comfort zone was one of the keys. It did not make any sense to me. How am I supposed to get out of my comfort zone when I'm injured? I can't even work hard. I can't push myself. So I decided to read the same chapter every single day for almost a year. And the following year, I qualified for Cameroon's national team, and I began competing internationally, France, Morocco, Azerbaijan, which was a country I had never heard of before. I was basically living my dream. I was an athlete. So I eventually realized that getting out of your comfort zone allows you to be your best and not necessarily the best, but in the best case scenario, you can become the best. And at the end of the day, it's my dream, it's my goal. I have to motivate myself. I have to pick myself up every single time, and I have to drive myself towards improvement every single day. And some of you might have someone that's guiding you on your path, but it's important to remember that you're doing it for you so that you can always find the strength to push beyond without having someone to push you even more. On your marks, get set. Great. So by the time I got to grade 12, I was very focused and convinced that reading this book had changed my life. I won 2 gold medals at OFSA and was headed to university to compete with the Ottawa UGGs. So excited. The very first competition, I pulled my hamstring again. Yeah, and this time it was worse. I was out for 6 months. And we already know this narrative. The minute you're not performing, you're irrelevant. But my mental was on lock. I had done this before. I knew that I had to heal and get back to training because I was doing this for me. Even though I couldn't run anymore, my brain wouldn't stop running. I just had to move. But this time, with my hands. I was always crafty as a young girl, and I'm guessing a lot of you in the room too, since we have a lot of creatives. I had a lot of random items in the room, and also a sewing machine. So I decided to make a top that was not that great at the time, to be honest. I posted it on Instagram, and someone's attention was caught. And that was the first time I realized, oh, someone other than myself is interested in what I create. Maybe I can contribute to the world in this way. So I decided to start a business, and I was 19. And we'll get back to that later. So eventually, I got better from the injury and continued to live on my dream of being an athlete. So in 2016, I was headed to my very first senior championship in Durban, South Africa. I was so excited. The second we land, I'm passing customs and immigration. The official takes my passport and says, "I'm afraid there's something wrong." I thought it was a joke, just like you guys, but the comedy I was running through my head quickly came to an end when they told me, "We're sending you back to Canada." I was so upset. I was supposed to race the next day, and I wanted it to happen. I kept waiting for that moment that you see in the movie scenes where someone runs out of nowhere and says, "Stop, there was a mistake." But it never happened. So I boarded a flight, was headed to Turkey, where I was detained for another 3 days. And to be honest, I was still pretty calm at that time. I was still thinking everything happens for a reason. So I was calm. They put me in a room with a bunch of other ladies, and I start panicking a little bit because one of the guards comes into the room, lights a cigarette. So I look around and notice that there are no windows, there's no light, not even a breath of fresh air. So I panicked, really panicked. Somehow, I still had this book with me. I know. I open a page, and the next line that I read is, "Outcome equals event plus response." So I give another look at the room, and I see a lady with a baby and a toddler, another one who's pregnant, and another lady who was clearly having trouble breathing. And after talking to some of the ladies in the room, I realized that almost all of them had legitimate reasons for being detained, and they were basically committing fraud and trying to get fake documents for other countries like Cyprus, the States, in order to escape oppression, war, and other things that we don't have to face here in Canada. So again, outcome equals event plus response. I was headed back to Canada, so why was I freaking out? So in that moment, I calmed down, and I was able to overcome the experience, but those words have always stuck with me. So I try my best every single time I find myself in a difficult situation to assess and give it the appropriate response as much as I could. Because outcome equals event plus response. Fast forward to 2019, when I realized that the Olympic Games was no longer an outcome I desired, and that I was not willing to spend another 5 years training twice a day in order to achieve that goal, I decided to hang my spikes and retire from competitive sports. On your marks, get set. So I met a guy and fell in love, I found my person, and I want to marry this guy. So let's call him Romeo. Yes. Since I put track and field behind me, I wanted to explore the other sides of me. I used to dance in high school and do all other artistic things. So I started going to dance class again. I was painting and drawing at home, basically living my best life for that moment. But one day, my Romeo told me that my art supplies were toxic and that I had to stop drawing or painting using charcoal and the sealants. I didn't listen, of course. So one time, as I was sealing a charcoal painting, a drawing, Romeo grabbed all of my art supplies, all my sketchbooks, and threw them down the chute. I felt the same way. I was shocked, devastated, heartbroken, and I knew that it was a sign that I had to leave my Romeo, but I didn't. I stayed, I put my art aside, I grew further and further away from my friends as I was constantly being told that they were not good for me. It took his hands choking me in my sleep to realize that I wasn't living anymore. I was just trying to survive. When I didn't have another flinch in me, I had to leave. I had to choose myself again. In between all the secrets and the lies, I was left with so much pain, lost and not knowing who I was anymore. But I knew who I did not want to be. I refused to be a victim, and I wanted to move forward. So I decided to take dance classes again and try to paint, try to draw, but something was missing. I needed permission. I needed permission to do, permission to be, and permission to create. So I gave myself permission. I gave myself permission to do what felt hard at the time, which was leaving a toxic and unhealthy environment. I gave myself permission to be myself again and got a cute apartment with an art room. And I gave myself permission to be creative, went to the art store and purchased the biggest canvas that I could find and started painting a woman. Now it was time to do the work, but I was terrified. I had developed a fear of being seen. I didn't want people to see my flaws. I didn't want people to see my mistakes, so I stopped the painting right away. But one day, as I was scrolling on Instagram, I saw that the Ottawa Art Gallery had a call for submissions for artists. It was for an exhibition called We Do Not Dream of Labor. I decided to apply. And I got in. After 5 years of almost doing nothing, 4 years. It feels like 5, but 4 years. 4 years of doing nothing, I was finally an artist. I got to do art again, but I was terrified. I didn't want to complete the painting. So what made me complete the painting? Commitment. I was committed to my goal, and my goal was to create the best thing I possibly could and release it. So, anyway, so this is my painting at the OAG. You can see she's a little bit bigger than me. And honestly, this moment made me realize that whenever you create something, you have to make it for yourself first. And then you try to make the best thing you possibly can and release it. So this is a saying that I go by, and it's even on a little post-it at the studio. And to be honest, I'm still slowly putting myself out there. I'm not yet ready to commit to one type of medium or one art form. And I'm using this time to explore my identity through the different mediums and the challenges that come with it. So earlier this year, I was invited to participate at Crépus. It's a hair show organized by Sandra and Charlène from Hors Social, if you might have heard of it, in Ottawa. And the hairstyles were inspired by pre-colonial African hairstyles. On the next slide, you can have a look to and see how anti-gravitational the hair is. I'm copying Wes now. Later on, I got to discover more about myself. And I learned that I enjoy creating collectively. So I began to display my fashion in a way where other people can participate. So I made a blank dress and got everyone else in the room to paint so that we can create the pattern together. I truly believe that we're all connected, so we always create something beautiful when we come together. And what started as DIYs and crafting as a child in my room with trash has grown into an art exhibition on fast fashion with my creation. And I even got to mentor a little girl, so that was really a full circle moment and it felt really good. Lastly, remember that business that I told you I started? It is now called Labarang Designs, and I make, thank you. I create gowns for special occasions such as weddings, prom. I also do editorials. So I am living the dream. I realized in the end that my identity is not attached to a profession or what I do. My identity comes from the person I am and the person I become through every single experience, good or bad. So I guess my mother was right. I can't have 5 jobs. But resilience and the ability to pivot has allowed me to win from every single experience. I wasn't ready for the injuries, the deception, the heartbreak. But I was set with the skills such as getting out of my comfort zone, changing my perspective, and committing to a goal. So there's only one thing left to do. Can any of you guess? Yes, exactly. So I shared a few of my obstacles, and there are many more on that list. I would like for you to do this exercise at home and write a list of at least 10 things that you've overcome, so that whenever you feel down or as if you have the world on your shoulders, you can use that list as a reference and know that you have strength and that you too are resilient. So one more time, guys. On your marks, get set. Thank you.